Hello, hello?
Hello?
Hello? Is anyone out there?
It's a mom's night out.
Tonight, we are honored to have Sarah Matz joining us. Sarah is an attorney and founding partner at Adelman Matz. Sarah heads both the intellectual property and branding and litigation practices at the firm. More notably, Sarah has represented some big names in the industry with huge success. More recently, Adelman Matz has been in the press for their bombshell lawsuit representing Leah McSweeney against Bravo and Andy Cohen. Tonight, again, we're so excited to have Sarah join us to talk about all of how she handles her high-profile cases, overcoming challenges as a woman in the male-dominated field of litigation, and how to navigate the dynamics of her partnership with Gary of Adelman Matz. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. We're excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Welcome to a mom's night out.
I know.
Yes.
We're going a little bit off the script because we're in this beautiful office and hanging above your shoulder is this like Backstreet Boys award type thing.
It's a cassette tape.
Cassette tape.
To be clear.
I haven't seen a cassette tape in
Yeah, it's a silver
award.
cassette.
It's
It's
okay,
It's in a
platinum.
shrine.
in 20 years.
Yeah. It's called a plaque.
Oh, that's the word I was looking for.
That makes sense.
But I think we had a good laugh before we came because we were asking like, oh, well, it's Gary's name on it, your partner, which we'll get into. But yeah, I think you had a funny joke about Gary did the choreography for it.
Yes. I like to tell people that, although he really represented one of the writers on the
love that.
album.
So cool.
That is
Although
so
it's
cool.
amusing, less and less people as they come into this office know the album. I mean, it's funny. Like the
we're
age
getting
gaps
old.
between people who mention it and people don't. I mean, obviously, I was prime teenage years when the Backstreet Boys came out, and when I first met Gary and I saw that plaque, I was like, "Oh my god,
You're so cool.
yeah,
Which was
exactly,
precisely our
exactly.
reaction.
So do you have like, I was about to say kids, do you have people working here that don't know the Backstreet Boys?
I would say that I certainly don't think anyone working here doesn't know the Backstreet Boys, but there are certainly people working here who have no connection to them and
Wow.
like weren't like fans of their music and didn't live that era of life.
Can you even imagine?
Wow.
That was like my
That
childhood.
means world.
That's wild.
Yep.
and then fast forward. All right, let's jump right in. I don't know how much you can share with us, but you're currently in the midst of a big lawsuit with representing Leah McSweeney against Bravo and Andy Cohen.
Yes.
Like, what can you tell us?
Well, since the lawsuit is ongoing, unfortunately, I can't tell you anything. Which I know, worst answer ever. But I promise at some point also today I'll say it depends.
She's like, I'm not going to promise you a tell-all interview in the future, but it's
Sounds
possible.
like you did. We're coming back
We have
for
it on
round
tape.
2.
We have it on tape.
Okay, so if you can talk about that case, let's talk about what do you think your most challenging case that you ever worked on was?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that cases can be challenging in a lot of different ways. One of my favorite cases that I ever worked on was actually a case called Redigi, which was a digital first sale doctrine case. We had a client who was trying to create a marketplace for sound recordings that you like purchased off of iTunes that you could buy and sell legally. And I think from a personal interest perspective, that was one of the more interesting cases I ever worked on, because I grew up with my dad's vinyls. I grew up with tapes. I grew up with CDs. I would go to the mall and buy CDs when they were released, and then you would resell them or you would return them to the used section and get credit. And, now people don't do that anymore. And
It's true.
When it comes to digital goods, we all spend a lot of money on digital goods, and yet they don't have the same kind of value that tangible goods have.
So true.
It's so
Never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
So-
it's wild. Like the CDs and tapes, like they're gone. Like you're not.
Well, they're right there.
They're right there.
They're hanging on the wall.
They're in frames. They're in frames. It's art. It's
Yeah.
a collector's edition.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a case that you can think of that was perhaps your most successful case, or one that stands out as like the most triumphant that you've had personally as like a lawyer?
Yeah, I think publicly the most successful case was the Cardi B case, the defamation case against Tasha K that we won, and we won her $4+ million. That was certainly, I'll say, my most public success and a big verdict as well. It was also a really interesting case to work on because defamation is a very tricky area of the law. And, when you have a case like that that's about a public figure, you really have to hit a much higher bar than you would if, let's say, you or I were defamed, who are not necessarily public figures. So it was both an interesting case legally to hit that bar because you have to actually show what's called actual malice, which, not to get too in detail, but it's where you show that someone either knew or should have known that their statement was false, essentially.
Oh.
So it's not even just that they said it and it ended up being false, which is a difficult bar to hit, but we hit it. And it was a great case to work on. And it was a very fun case to work on also.
Yeah, that's super cool. And Cardi B, oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm obsessed with her.
I am too. I love her.
She works incredibly hard. And I was really, on a personal level, very, very happy that we were able to win that case for her, because what was going on really was pretty disgusting and atrocious. I mean, the woman, Tasha K, I know that people in the media talk a lot about celebrities, and I'm sure that people who get into public life, there's a certain amount of that they expect, but there's lines still.
Yeah.
And, I think the things that were said about her and her family were way over the line. So it was very nice to be able to help her with that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that put you guys on the map in a different way? Like, did you have a bunch of celebrities reaching out to you for you to represent them after that?
So interestingly, our clientele base, we've really had it for a long time. I don't think that that's the case, I would say, that put us on the map.
Yeah. You're like, girl, we were famous before that. She's like, that's why Cardi B called you.
We were already hot shots before.
Yeah. How'd she find you?
Well, so our firm, we work in a lot of areas of law that are adjacent to what entertainment lawyers do. So, and we're entertainment lawyers also, but we don't do exactly the work that many entertainment lawyers do. So we worked actually for 2 years. We were at the law firm with her entertainment lawyer. And that's the law firm when Gary and I left it, when we broke out and started Adelman Matz. But we left on very good terms with them. It was just not, I would just say, not a great fit, but it was kind of like they wanted to continue working with us. We wanted to continue working with them. So we would do litigation for a lot of their clients. And we would do trademarks for their clients. And we would do, the other things we do for their clients. And I think throughout the years, Gary and I have definitely developed a reputation for taking cases that are, interesting and have odd fact patterns, because we like challenges. And so we knew her entertainment lawyer very well. And we had done work for a bunch of his other clients before that are also our clients, shared clients. And that's how we got that.
That's
very
cool.
incredible.
Cool.
Yeah. And along those, you're definitely that's a big name to represent. And I can imagine now with the internet and just internet trolls, there's just always so much criticism and lawyers in general. People are always trying to dig in, not only the people, but then the teams representing the lawyers. How do you just drown out that noise? Do you look what's on the internet, or you just keep going, keep working?
Well, so to some degree, I don't think anybody can really help looking. I wish I didn't sometimes. But no, I look, and you have to be aware of it. I don't think it's ever a great idea in any respect of a practice to put your head in the sand and not know what's out there. But from my perspective, first of all, I just try not to get caught in it, because the reality is there's always going to be that noise. And I've had cases that have gotten both a lot of mainstream media attention, and I've also had cases that have had their own kind of little cult stream attentions. We had a case a while back that this was maybe a decade ago, but it was actually two podcast partners who broke up, but then they were suing each other over a business dispute, but their fans were, there's Reddit pages dedicated to this. And every time I would file something online, there would immediately be people analyzing it and talking about it. And it was actually the most, we'll say, instantaneous and constant commentary on a case I've ever had, just because the fans of this show were absolutely engaged. It was pretty wild, actually.
Wow.
But I guess I stay aware of it, but I just don't really get caught in it. I mean, my job is to win the case in court, and you got to stay focused to do that, because amazingly, and I say amazingly, even though I think people should know this, but I don't think a lot of people do know this, what you read in the media about court cases is oftentimes so far off from what's actually going on. It's pretty crazy. And if you are trying to litigate the case just in the press, like, you're going to lose sight of what you're really doing in court.
Oh,
I like that.
I like that. Okay, pivoting a little bit. What is a skill set that you possess as an attorney that translates well into everyday life? Tough question.
Well, my dad would tell you that my dad would answer this question in the reverse, and he would say, she really loved to argue and now she gets paid to do it. I don't love to argue. I'm a nice person, but I was always very interested in philosophy and government and debate and things like that. So
really?
I definitely think that, I don't know. That's not much of a skill set, is it?
I think being able to argue.
Yeah, I think that's a great skill set.
And be logical in your, your arguments. Because I think some people, when they start arguing, you're not even sure what they're saying, but to be able to be logical in it.
Yeah. I think that
and you have to be. I mean, you've been so successful. So
you definitely have to be logical. You also have to stay calm. You can't be.
I wouldn't be good at that.
Overly excitable. I mean, you have to be able to keep your head about you when things are happening that you didn't expect, or something's happening with a judge or a client that kind of came out of left field. So maybe that. I mean,
you must have a great poker face too, because I feel like you have to stay kind of people can't read you in a courtroom. I would fail at that too.
You absolutely do.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah. I would fail.
Especially when you're in front of juries, because they're watching your every single move.
Oh, gosh.
Crazy.
Okay, so we're going to switch it up a little bit. In law, and especially in litigation, it's a male-dominated field. And so what are some of the unique challenges that you see women facing today?
I think that it is still very male-dominated, and I think especially litigation. I think you're right about that. I think that in terms of challenges, I think a lot of young female associates have trouble finding their voice in this profession, because I think women are, in general, and myself included in some ways, when we're brought up, we're taught to be, and I'm not saying this is any fault of parents or anything, it's just often the way it is. We're taught to be helpful, and we're taught to be, offer to get things for people, and we're taught to be kind and compassionate. And all those things are wonderful qualities for all human beings, including women. But I think that in a legal practice, when you get out there and you're up against adversaries, I think a lot of women tend to be overly helpful when they should not be, and they have trouble finding the line between being a nice, pleasant person and being aggressive. They have trouble finding, I always call it assertiveness. They have trouble kind of finding that assertive moment when you're able to just say, no, you don't have to be a bitch about it, but they have trouble kind of figuring out what their voice should be. And I spend a lot of time with my female associates, talking to them about, don't offer to do things for opposing counsel you shouldn't be doing. Don't be overly polite in emails. Don't call somebody Mr. So-and-so. You can be respectful and call them by their first name. But I think oftentimes female litigators have trouble figuring out how to kind of automatically put themselves on the same respect level as male peers and partners and adversaries. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a hard line to draw because of the expectations people in society have and the way they've been raised.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think it also can apply to other industries.
Oh,
I see it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Such
Absolutely.
a good message for young women and all women in the workplace.
All women listening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I know. And for you to learn that, so I'm assuming you sort of probably had to go through a little bit of trial and error in the beginning to learn that, or were you always just able to come in and know how to be a woman in this industry?
I would say that the way I was brought up may have given me a little bit of an advantage. So the first few years of my life, I went to a private school, but it was in Ohio. I don't want to use the word hippie in a bad sense. It was like a private hippie school. We learned to spell phonetically. There were no grades. You were just in levels of classes, and nobody called teachers by their first name, or nobody called teachers by their last names, right? Everybody was, my teachers were John and Tessa, not Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. And my dad and my mom always brought me up to very firmly know that even though I was a child, my voice mattered. And so I actually, when I transitioned to public school, when my parents got divorced, I actually had a very rough year because I got in trouble a lot. I wasn't calling teachers Mr. and Mrs. Martin and whatnot.
Oh my God.
And my response when they would tell me to is I would say, well, you have to get respect, or you have to earn respect to get respect.
Oh God. Wait,
Yes.
how old were you when you were saying this?
I was 8. And
Wait, stop.
I also told the school to stop playing Christmas music in the hallways because I was Jewish. And and they shouldn't be doing that because it might offend, students who weren't Christian. So
as an 8-year-old, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Okay, so you've always had it. You've always had a voice.
I
love that.
And I figured out how to use it. But I really credit my parents for that. They were.
Wait, I love that you credit your parents for that. Obviously, we have 8-year-old kids right now, and females at that. And that is such an important message, like allowing your child to have a voice, and what you said, a voice that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that I do that in my house so well.
No, I'm telling her always to be quiet.
Yeah. And to listen, and like, I'm the boss. And it's like, no, my daughter has no problem telling me, Mom, I feel this way, and it doesn't matter what you say I should feel. She'll say that to me. So
good for her.
Right. And I'm like, whoa, that you spoke to me when you said that.
Yeah.
My dad always tells this story. I can't believe I'm actually about to say this on tape, but I'm going to. My dad always tells this story of one time when we went to visit my grandparents on his side. They live down in South Jersey. And, it was late. I was going to bed, and my Zeta said, come here, give me a hug and a kiss goodnight or whatever. And I was like, no. And I just started walking upstairs, right? I wasn't interested. And my Zeta turned to my dad and said, why aren't you, telling her to come give her grandpa a hug and a kiss goodnight? And my dad was like, well, I mean, it's her body. And when she's 16 and some guy's sticking his hand up her skirt, I want her to know that it's okay to say no.
I love that.
I mean, that is huge.
You talk about that. That's like a big parenting message. So I feel like your dad was like ahead of the
times.
He really is.
Yeah.
My dad's a pretty wonderful human being. He's very in touch with himself. And my mom's really wonderful too. Even though they separated when I was little, they're both great, and they're actually really good friends. It was very nice.
Well, you guys raised a great daughter. If you're listening.
Are they going to listen to this podcast?
100%.
Yes. Hi, Mom and Dad.
That's amazing.
So our parents listen to it. I'm always like, oh no, maybe not that one.
They were like, ooh, we swear. When we first started, they were like, please stop swearing. And we were like, oh, shoot.
That's kind of good feedback.
Yeah. I was like, we were all nervous.
It was.
There's statistics out there that say successful people swear more.
I know.
I
threw
lean
that back at them.
I lean on that all the time
too.
because I swear like a sailor. And I'm like, no, it's fine.
It is fine.
Okay. Do you have advice for aspiring female attorneys, or just females in general looking to pursue a career?
Yeah. I mean, I think that for female attorneys, first of all, I like to tell female attorneys, I talk a lot about, like what I said, finding your voice, but also I don't think female attorneys should be afraid to be in confrontational situations. I hear a lot of women saying to me, I teach at Fordham. I teach a class.
Oh, I didn't know
I didn't know
that.
that either.
Yeah, I teach copyright at Fordham as an adjunct, one semester a year, which I actually really love. And I really love the students. It's been a wonderful experience for me as well. And I hear a lot of women, young women, who talk to me about how I got where I am and whatnot, say, well, I don't know if litigation would be for me. But, I think the reality is you're not going to know if you try it until you try it. And I think that women who automatically rule out maybe more confrontational types of professions are, not giving themselves the chance to see if they're really going to love it. Because not even that litigation has to be confrontational, although sometimes it is. But, to me, I love it because it's like a chess game, right? There's always something to figure out. You're thinking about your next move. You're thinking about your adversary's next move. No two cases are alike. It's very challenging, and I really love that.
Yeah, seems like there would be a lot of thinking on the spot, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I would not
Especially
be
if you're
good at
doing
that.
live trial work.
I would not be great. Again, that's why I'm not. Well, number one, there's no poker face, and number two, I need to sit and think.
Yeah.
Know what I'm going to say or like what I'm going to do. Like I need to take it in and be like, okay, let me analyze. If I do it this way, that would happen. If I do it this way, this is going to happen. So yeah, I'm not.
You never know.
You never know. I don't know. I don't think career changes in my cards. Imagine in 2 years, I'm like, Sarah, can you mentor me? I want to be in litigation.
It's never too late.
I like that actually. When we had our prep call, I thought it was important, and I wanted to touch on this of going back to like the gender dynamics and how it definitely is a male-dominated industry, and being a female. Like, have you faced like from some of the male attorneys sort of talking down to you, or like how does that play out? Like, do they respect women lawyers, or just what's the gender dynamic?
Sure. So, I mean, listen, I don't ever want to overgeneralize. I have so much respect and admiration for many male attorneys that I've learned from throughout the years. We have, I mean, in our firm alone, we have a lot of male litigators on our team. They're all wonderful people. And I've also had many adversaries out there who I have never even thought twice about this conversation, meaning I've never even thought about this conversation when I'm dealing with them. And so there's so many people out there who this is not an issue for, but have I faced it? Of course I have. I mean, I would say I don't really feel like I've ever faced it in a courtroom. I don't actually think I've ever felt like a judge was treating me differently because I was a woman. But where I have faced it more personally is actually outside of the courtroom in situations where the judge is not present. I've had situations at depositions and on meet and confer calls and other things where a few times in my career where I have definitely felt that another male adversary, and the times it's happened to me, they have all been also older, has definitely been treating me like I was the little girl on the call, or trying to treat me that way, we should say. I don't really put up with that. But it can be a difficult situation because there's not a third party referee in the room. You have to navigate the situation as best you can. And there's not always the perfect answer to it. And I've unfortunately watched it happen to other female associates too. I've watched male attorneys do things in depositions that I know they would never do if there was like the judge there, right? If there was the judge there, or if it was a man on the other side. Yeah.
But I guess similarly, I mean, then there's also women who can be really mean to women, like the mean girls. 100.
Actually, it's funny. One of my most, we'll say, negative adversarial, because actually a lot of attorneys, even when you're on the other side, you can get along as professionals. You can both advocate for your clients, disagree about the merits, but be perfectly collegial and professional on calls. And I would say more often than not, that is how attorneys interact with one another. But you're right. And some of my most negative adversarial experiences, a couple of them were actually with other women, who were not always. Like I said, most of the time it's not the case, but that's certainly happened. Yeah.
Mean girls are everywhere.
Yeah. Everywhere. We have an episode on that.
We did. All right. I want to transition to Gary and this relationship, Adelman Matz, and the partnership that is. I mean, we interviewed Gary, gosh, I think the episode aired maybe March, April. Yeah. You guys, if you're listening and you didn't listen to that one, go back and listen to it, because it kind of sets up the background of, how you guys got started. So from your mouth, how did you and Gary first meet? I love this story.
Yeah. So I took 2 years off between law school and college. I had planned to go to law school, but some things happened in my personal life that made me kind of want to wait a minute. And also it was a very big financial commitment and I was a little nervous. So I had actually gotten some really great advice from someone at a trustee dinner to go work as a paralegal, because I had some lawyers being like, oh, don't do it, you're going to hate your life. Lawyers hate their lives. And I was like, what? Because it was what I always wanted to do.
That is so scary.
So I got a job at a law firm as a paralegal in New York. And a few months into my work there, Gary had a boutique firm downtown, and they acquired Gary's firm. And him and all of his associates were supposed to come up to this office and become part of this other larger firm. And I was put in charge of the transition. And don't ask me why, because I had been at this law firm like 6 months. I don't know what I knew that anyone put me in charge of this, but they did. And so it was my job to take Gary and his, group of associates and make them fit into this very kind of like white shoe situation.
I'm dying.
And we really did not like each other at first because I can't even imagine from his perspective now I think about it. There I was, some like 22-year-old person right out of college.
That's amazing.
Walking into his office and telling him how things were going to go.
He was like,
Yeah. And so at first I didn't like him very much and he didn't like me very much. But as we worked together, we had to work in this transition together. I started getting to know him and his team, and I was very interested in going to law school at the time, and I still thought it was what I wanted to do. And we would get in these long discussions about, things that were interesting about the law and the different kinds of lawyers you could be. When I was growing up and I wanted to be a lawyer, I had an idea of what that was, but I didn't really have lawyers in my family. So it was great to, learn more about that. And I also started working with him and his team in terms of doing actual legal work as a paralegal. And I really loved the work. It was all interesting. The clients were interesting. The fact that it was art and music related really resonated. My dad's an artist. He does large scale stained glass. So I really connected with that. I don't think I even knew what an IP lawyer was before that. And I just really fell in love with it. So we started working together, and I was his paralegal, and then I was his associate. And then at some point after we'd been running his practice group together for several years, we decided to become partners, and that's when we started Adelman Matz.
So cool. Did people think you were crazy for starting your own firm?
I'm sure they did. Yes, actually, a few of my friends.
She's like, wait, I'm remembering now.
Yeah, a few of my friends, when I told them, they were like, "What? You're doing what?" At the time when we started the firm, I was 29.
Wow.
And so we left.
Yeah.
We just pieced the firm. We pieced out the firm we were at. We started this firm. And I definitely think at the time, some of my friends who were in very secure and comfortable jobs were like, "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Especially some of my other lawyer friends, because I went to Fordham. I did very well in school, but I did not go big firm track because I was like, that's not for me. I really felt that I was learning a lot with Gary. He was a wonderful mentor and teacher, and I wanted to continue down this path. And my friends who were all at big firms, they were like, "This doesn't feel like a great idea."
Now look at me.
I know. Okay, so I'm sure there's been some disagreements between you and Gary over the years, as with like any partnership. How do you guys work through those?
Well,
That's a good question.
you can edit out my long pause here.
It's okay.
No. So I've been working with Gary for 18 years.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That is
and
a long time.
So by the time we became partners, we knew each other really well. Kind of, and when I say knew each other really well, I mean, when you work with someone, you get to know their strengths and weaknesses, and we kind of both knew what we each brought to the table. So I think, first of all, going into business with someone for years in a business context, it's not like we were just friends outside of work and decided to start because that's sometimes what happens with people. They go into business because they're friends, and not that that's a bad thing, but then sometimes they see completely different sides of one another. So we kind of went into this eyes wide open in terms of who we both were as professionals.
Yeah.
And so I think that has helped because we both went into this knowing our strengths, knowing our weaknesses, and knowing what we each wanted to kind of run with in terms of pieces of the business. But I mean, yes, of course, we've had disagreements. And also we're both lawyers, so we love to argue for a living.
I can imagine how that goes.
No, I would just love to be a fly on
Do
the
you
wall.
have like a special word when you're like cucumber, if it's like getting too heated and you need to like sleep on it?
Oh no.
No, we're both pretty good at talking things through. And first of all, we usually, when we think there is going to be something we're going to disagree about, we'll just try to have a conversation about it and each kind of voice whatever our opinions are, whatever our thoughts are. And what I try to do, and this is actually something my mom taught me, is I try to just not make decisions right now. Like I find it actually avoids a lot of conflict to say, hey, listen, let's chat about this. We don't need to decide right now. Because if you can come back to it and, give everybody a little time and space to think about it, I think you usually end up coming to a consensus. But I think at the end of the day, both of us really respect each other as lawyers and as professionals. And we've always found a way to, you don't have to win everything. And it's not about winning. It's about really doing what's best for the business. And I think both of us do a good job of putting whatever our personal opinions are aside. And, it doesn't mean it always goes one way or the other, but just figuring it out and coming to something that we can both live with and move on from.
I love that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Great advice.
No, it's very, and you can tell just like the partnership between you guys is just strong and you respect each other both so much. It's great.
I know.
Hopefully this is us in 18 years, guys.
I know.
It will be.
Yes. She's like, please. I feel like you have so much more left in your career, but looking back from like where you are today, if you could pull out like just one piece of advice to share on your career, like aspect or just like your job experience like, that everybody should learn, what would it be?
I think for me, and the thing I wish people would do is follow your own path. And whether it's the road less taken or not, do it, because I have so many law students and, young lawyers, and because a lot of people want to get into the entertainment field and they'll call me up or ask me if they can have coffee with me or whatever. And I'll always say yes, because I'm a big believer in mentorship. But, how did you get where you are? I get this question all the time. And I'm like, I'll tell you my story, but you can't follow my path. Right. And some of the best decisions I made getting to where I am were not doing the thing that everybody else did. All my friends in law school went big firm. And I certainly could have done that too, but I was like, that's not for me. I knew it wasn't going to be an environment I would thrive in. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. And it was kind of scary not doing the thing that everybody else was doing. But some of the best decisions I've made were doing what felt right to me. This time, same as starting the firm. Like I said, I had friends who were like, what are you doing right now? But I knew it was right for me. And, listening to yourself, trusting yourself, and you don't have to approach a career the same way everybody else does. And you shouldn't, because you're never going to be able to follow somebody else's path.
Mic drop.
I think that was such great advice.
Such good advice.
Because it's true. Like you can't just, if you ask somebody like, how did you get to where you are? Because you want to follow that, it's not going to work. You're going to fail.
Yeah. There's no book.
I think if I'm allowed to give one more piece.
Yeah, you're allowed to. Okay. We'll allow it.
I say this to a lot of young people because I think this is regardless of their career. And that is like, if you're trying to break into a certain firm or career or something, don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask them for that coffee and ask them for that 20 minutes and ask them if you can come up to their office and meet them, even if it's cold off of LinkedIn. Because the reality is I actually think most people in the world, and this might be a little Ohio of me, but I think most people in the world are good and want to help other people, and people who are truly interested and passionate, they will give you a little bit of time. They will help you. I mean, don't waste it. Go in prepared and go in, make sure you have a plan for this meeting. But I see a lot of people, young people, being unsure how to do certain things. And it's because they don't understand the value of like reaching out, go to the meeting, go to the networking event, go meet people, try to get in with them. And I think it's really important.
I'm glad we allowed you the second piece of advice.
I feel like we are learning that on this podcast. Like even people like you and Gary being willing to sit down with us and some interviews that we've done lately. It's shocking how many people want to sit and talk to you and tell their story, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you can't get what you don't ask for.
That's also like such good advice. I think people like forget about that. Like if you don't ask for it, you're probably not going to get it. Like you have to get out there and just be like, no, I want this.
Yeah. And people might not always say yes, but I think more often than not, people will try to help you out.
Right. What's that? What's the worst that can happen? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't shoot. Gretzky. Something like that.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, that's it.
I mess up the sports references all the time. I actually gave one of my litigation meeting yesterday, and one of my associates was like, "Good job, Sarah." You didn't mess that one up, and I was like, "Thank you."
I'm like, what's that quote? The one with this or that.
I always get it wrong.
I always get it wrong.
Yeah.
You landed it.
Should we shift gears? We have some fun questions for you to sort of wrap it all up.
I can start. I think this is a fun one. If you weren't a lawyer, what would you be doing?
I 100% know the answer to this.
I love that.
I would be running a bakery.
Stop.
Yes, I love baking. I learned to bake from my grandma, and I find it so much fun. And I do have a name of my bakery picked out.
What is it?
I'm not going to tell you on camera, but I will tell you.
Tell us offline.
It's not a good public. It's not a good.
Yeah,
public
someone
name.
like gonna swoop in and take it. I get it.
Exactly.
Well,
I haven't trademarked
Did
it
you
yet.
trade? Yeah.
Oh,
Come on, girl.
my goodness.
Well, I have to actually have an intent to use it. No, but that's 100% what I would do. I love baking in my spare time.
Wait, so what's your
love
favorite
that.
thing to bake?
I mean, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
I really like doing layered cakes. I really like doing, I love doing cupcakes. I think cupcakes are very fun. And I actually really love pies. I love making pies, although I do not do fruit pies.
What do
No
you make?
fruit
What kind of
pies?
pies?
Like a pumpkin pie?
Like I do pumpkins, I do chocolate cream pies, I do Mississippi muds, I do a lot of key lime, I do
This is
I'll do
supposed to be
custards.
I know.
I don't know.
challenging.
Fruit pies are
Boring.
I don't enjoy them.
Enjoy a key lime pie right now.
Do you do like, I guess, baking like a chicken pot pie?
I do sometimes do savory.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually,
Good question, Katie.
yes. There's some really good savory pies.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
All right, next question. Your house is on fire. What are you grabbing as you run out the door? We asked Gary this question, by the way.
I know. I listened to his podcast. Actually, when I saw this on the list, I was really laughing because, so this is kind of a fun. So this actually, my house did not catch on fire, but I thought it was. I thought my apartment was catching on fire. This was a long time. This was like 8 years ago. I was living in this walk-up apartment, and I saw a bunch of lights outside, and I looked out my window, and there were ladders coming up.
Oh my gosh.
I was in the fire department's outside, and there's firemen climbing up, and I was like, oh my God, my apartment building's on fire. So I grabbed, I don't know, this was a decision. But I grabbed my Longchamp bag and I started stuffing my I have some family jewelry. It's not really expensive, but it's sentimental. And I'm stuffing it in there. And then I ran out of the building.
Oh
and
my God.
went, and I didn't know where to go. So I went down to the corner. There was a diner on my corner, and I went down there and sat and got a glass of water. And I was shaking a little because I was, nervous. And I just run down the steps. And I'm looking in this bag, and I was like, this is pathetic.
You're like, that's all I have.
That's all I grabbed. I grabbed because I have a couple pieces from my grandmother, that were family pieces from her mother. And like I said, they're not super valuable, but they're meaningful to me.
That's a good one.
I think so,
I
too.
think that's a good one.
And I love that it's like actually been tested. Like you,
it happened.
This
Like,
was
you
like a
really
real
actually know.
Yeah, you were in the spot.
I did actually shove my passport in there too. I grabbed my
Wow.
passport.
Of course you did.
I would
Yeah.
never have thought to grab my.
Me neither.
I'd be like, I hope this fire, like, we have the fireproof safe. I hope it's
really
actually
fireproof.
fireproof. Probably not.
It's true.
I think I saw like a wire cutter review and they're not really fireproof. It's a big scam.
They might be.
We need a fact checker
Let's
here.
not find out.
Let's not find out.
Okay, tell us something people would be surprised to know about you.
I think I think it depends on who you're talking to, but I think most people who meet me now are surprised to learn where I grew up. I grew up really far out in the country. My dad, I actually grew up on a little community in Southeast Ohio. My dad moved out there with a bunch of my dad lived in kibbutzes in Israel and then really liked that lifestyle. So he and one of his cousins and a couple of his best friends moved out and started this little community. And like all the adults had jobs, but I grew up in this community, and my dad's house is very, very far. Like it has running water and electricity and everything, but it's not connected to city like facilities. And so I grew up literally the road ends where my dad's house is. There's no more road. So I grew up very, very far out in the country. And I spent most of my childhood there. So I think now, I've lived in New York now for 20 years.
How did you end up
What
here?
a change.
Yeah, I moved here after college. Most of my friends were moving here, and I had actually originally planned to move to Boston.
Oh.
And my a relationship in my life at that time ended in a pretty spectacular way, and I was like, Boston is not big enough for the two of us.
It's not. I can tell you, it's not.
So I I
Learned
was
that
like,
one the
all my
hard
friends
way.
are going to New York. I'm going there too.
Wow.
And it was great. I've never looked back. I love the city. I really do.
Oh,
No, fantastic.
I like that.
Yeah.
This was amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you for
Sarah.
sitting down with
Thank you
us.
for having
I
me.
know.
And I can't wait for round 2 when we talk about your big case that you're probably going to win. I hope.
We hope. Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Thank you all.
I know. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.